This 13th chapter of the Gospel of Matthew is the chapter of parables. This is one of 7 parables in this one chapter. Parables being ways that Jesus spoke to the crowds. Now, you heard I did that funny little gloss in the middle if you were following along. That's because our lectionary cuts those first verses away from later in the chapter, and it sounds the way it's put in the lectionary like Jesus is still in the boat telling the whole crowd, here's the parable and here's what it means. That's not the way Jesus taught. He just let the parable be out there. It's later, the disciples asked him later, 9 verses later in this chapter, what he was doing with the parables, and he says, here's what it is. Part of what Jesus does with the explanation of the parable, I think, in some ways, gets me away from that parable. The parable is about the sower. And Jesus' explanation, he really focuses on the ground. But I think it may be because that's part of what they were struggling with. Jesus is teaching wonderful things. He's healing people. There are incredible things happening. So why aren't more people following? Could you imagine not following that? Well, if you know in your own life, times when you hear incredible things about God and it doesn't quite happen that way. Well, so I think this for the disciples then, and maybe for us today. Don't worry so much about why isn't anybody else here. Because the sower is at work. Now, y'all know me well enough to know that I'm not much of a gardener. I have no green thumb whatsoever. So this kind of sowing, I could do this, where you didn't have to worry about where it landed or what you did. This sower, imagine the picture, this 2,000 years ago, okay? The sower, and he's got this bag of seed. And the seed that you saved to grow the next year is very, very precious stuff then. And he sticks his hand in that bag full and comes up and throws it. Now, any farmer that was in the crowd listening to Jesus was going, oh, no, you wouldn't. Why would you throw it, this precious seed, where it's landing on the path, on rocky soil, in that thorny briar patch over there? What are you thinking? So I love that this is the parable of the sower. This is a parable about a God who just throws that love around everywhere. Doesn't figure out, okay, let's see now. No, I don't think he'll respond today, so no God's love for you. No, God just takes that love. And so if the sower is Jesus, what is it that he's sowing? That he is just spreading it to everybody. A word of a God who yearns to be with us. Yeah, I'm back to my Advent. I told you I was going to be on it all year. Emmanuel, God with us. A God who will stop at nothing to be with us. A God whose love is so great. This God wants us to draw us nearer, to enliven us in ways that call us to walk on that path of righteousness that gives us life. It's not a set of rules, but a relationship that shapes life to its fullest. God takes that love and says, yeah, there's forgiveness in there too. Forgiveness for when we have decided that we want to make our own path. And there's love and forgiveness and God with us, and there is such amazing things. And God just tosses it everywhere. That's what Jesus is sowing. The sower went out to sow, and the seed landed everywhere. And that's good news for us. Because I know in my own life, sometimes I can look at it and say, you know, looking back, I say, I guess I was pretty rocky soil then. Yay, Jesus! And I got all excited at some retreat or something and went back and nothing changed. Or I got so afraid because of things in my life, my budget or whatever, and I didn't let that full call to life with God bloom. But you know, it's good news for me because God keeps throwing the seed. The sower just keeps sowing. Now, if we are called to be the followers, the disciples, the hands of God at work today, if we are sent out to do the work you have been given to do, to spread that, we are called to also be those sower. And there's good news in that. You don't have to worry about where you're making it land. And you don't have to be so upset if you go, why'd we do that? Nothing came of it. Because sometimes it doesn't. So anyway, stick your hand deep into the love of God and throw it around willy-nilly anyway. Because you never know when it will take seed. And there will be such an abundance. And this is where the farmers listened to Jesus in that day, perked up again and said, oh yeah, right, 100-fold. That, yeah. And you don't know when the seed of God's love that you just throw around crazy in the thrift shop is going to land and take root. Sow it anyway. Or we welcome people in whatever way, or you share with your neighbor something about what God has meant and done, and you don't think anything has taken place. You don't know. Sometimes I can sit and watch and try to see something grow, and it seems to happen when you're not looking. Sower just went out to sow. And we have been blessed by God sowing so much love into our lives. God with us. That we are called to spread that blessing without hesitation, without fear, without prejudging, without worrying about, oh, how precious the resource is. We can't quite be that free with it, can we? It is God's love, God's forgiveness, God's call, God's life. And it is very precious, and it is very abundant, and it is what we are called to sow. I look back over these 12 years with you all, and I'm really proud and pleased to look back and see those times when we have just sown. And we often don't have much to show for it, but we sowed the seed of God's love anyway. Keep doing that. Keep believing that God's love, God's call, God's promise of with us, God's forgiveness, that these are worth throwing all over this valley. And God will bless, and there will be harvest. Some 100-fold, some 60, some 30. It will grow. Just so.